Hi everyone, Alex from Beam is here, and in this video we're going to talk about two new features in the Beam wallets, namely the offline transactions and the max privacy transactions, which will be released in the 5.1 and 5.2 versions respectively. Both of these features are built upon the LelantusMW protocol, which we will discuss in depth today, and we will talk about from both the user perspective and also how the technology works under the hood. We have quite a lot of material to cover, so let's get started. The title of this video is sponsored by Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Use the pool, Luke.
So, before we talk about LelantusMW and what advantages it brings to Beam, let's talk about the Mimblewimble protocol itself. Mimblewimble protocol has two, let's say, properties. One of them is kind of unique to Mimblewimble. It's the interactivity. So unlike Bitcoin, where it's sufficient for the sender to sign the transaction and then send it to the blockchain, in Mimblewimble, both the sender and the receiver are required to sign the transaction before it can be considered valid. And this means that there should be at least one round trip completed between the sender and the receiver. And this makes this protocol very different from what people are used to, especially if they worked a lot with Bitcoin and most other cryptocurrencies. So initially it was a source of confusion for many users that started using Beam. And we have tried to make this as usable as possible by introducing the system like SBBS, which allows to quickly and easily send encrypted messages between the wallets to create these transactions. But there is a reason why Mimblewimble uses this protocol, this interactivity. And it is that it allows, by structuring the UTXOs in a specific way, to provide the cut-through feature, which allows to reduce blockchain size significantly by removing all intermediate transactions and thus make the blockchain size smaller. Now, this is quite important for the decentralization because this means that more users will be able to run full nodes, and it's easier to bootstrap new nodes in the system. And of course, this improves decentralization, which is very important for us. So this is the price, this interactivity is the price for better decentralization through smaller blockchain size using the cut-through feature of Mimblewimble. The other property is not specific to Mimblewimble, but rather is common for all the UTXO-based blockchains, such as Bitcoin and many others. And it's related to the fact that in the UTXO-based blockchain, each transaction is combined of the set of inputs and outputs, and the outputs of each transaction become the inputs of the next transaction, and so on and so forth. So this allowed us to represent this as kind of a tree of inputs and outputs, and specifically in Bitcoin, for example, since all the addresses and all the amounts are written on-chain, it can allow us to trace how funds move through the network with each block, and thus recreate this transaction graph and basically trace who receives which funds at each time. In Beam, of course, there are no addresses on the blockchain, and the information about the amounts is encrypted. Therefore, it's not possible to analyze the blockchain retrospectively. However, if you are monitoring sufficient amounts of the network online and you're mounting targeted attacks where the attacker sends funds through a specific route or to a specific individual, and on the other side has some KYC information, it could be statistically possible, even though it's very difficult, to have some kind of probabilistic de-anonymization or linking of two individuals that conduct transactions in Beam, one to another. And this is, of course, a problem for privacy. Even though it's very difficult to mount such attack, it is theoretically possible. So this is where the LelantusMW protocol comes in. Originally, the Lelantus protocol was created by a cryptographer, Aram Zhivanyan, for the Zcoin cryptocurrency. And what we've done in Beam, we have taken this protocol and adapted it to work with Mimblewimble, and we call this adaptation LelantusMW, and we have published a paper that describes exactly which changes we made to the original protocol, and of course we also reviewed it both cryptographically and the implementation of the protocol itself. During the last hard fork, the 5.0, which was kind of like 2 months ago, we have enabled this protocol on our mainnet. And now these days we're releasing the desktop wallet features and the mobile wallet features that support using this protocol for both offline and max privacy transactions. So let's start with the offline transactions, even though this is not the major or the more important part, because we wouldn't have added this protocol just for the offline transactions, but we saw this as an opportunity to provide this type of transactions in addition to the regular interactive Mimblewimble transactions using Lelantus, and let's see how it works. So in the basis of the Lelantus protocol, there is a shielded pool. Basically, it's a pool of UTXOs where you can submit some UTXO into the pool and then take out another completely new and unlinked from all the previous history UTXO, and you can prove that this UTXO holds the same amount of coins as the UTXO that you have put in. So this pool is, in case of the offline transactions, is only used to get rid of this interactivity requirement. You can submit the coin into the pool for somebody else, and then at any time in the future, the receiver can just scan the blockchain, find all the coins in the blockchain that were placed into the pool for this specific user, and use them in either more LelantusMW or Mimblewimble transactions. We have created two methods of conducting these offline transactions. And these methods correspond to different use cases. So the first use case is just the possibility of sending someone funds when we know that this person will not be online in the near future. And we have done it using so-called vouchers. It's basically this ability to send a single payment, and each payment is identified using a unique number that we call a voucher. This is the most secure and private form of transacting because it's completely untraceable. Even the sender doesn't know when the receiver spends the funds after he has placed the UTXO into the pool for the receiver. However, it requires generating this set of vouchers. And in our latest version of the wallet, by default, we're generating 10 vouchers when you create a new offline address. And then what happens is that when these vouchers run out, the sender wallet can automatically contact the receiver wallet via SBBS and ask for more vouchers if the receiver is online, or in case the receiver is never online, basically the vouchers run out and the wallet informs the sender that there are no more vouchers in this address, and then the sender can contact the receiver via some other channel and ask for more. The other use case where it's possible to use offline addresses is to collect donations. So in case of donations, you most likely to publish some address on your website, and then people are sending funds to this address as a donation. And in this case, the receiver is clearly not anonymous. So everybody knows who this address belongs to because it's published on the respective website. However, the sender does wish to remain anonymous, which is why we have provided a specific option. It's called public offline address. There is only one such address that can be generated by each wallet. And this address can be published on the website, and then it doesn't require vouchers. You can send funds to this address at any time, and the receiver, of course, will receive them whenever he is online. However, there is some trade-off here because in this case, because of the architecture of how LelantusMW implementation works, the sender can theoretically see when the receiver is spending the funds, namely takes them out of the pool. So it's a little bit less secure option, and it should only be used in the donations use case, which is why we're going to put it somewhere in the settings and only dedicate it for this specific type of use case, and we will discourage people from using it in regular offline transactions. So now let's talk about the second feature, which is the max privacy transactions. And this is the main reason why we have added Lelantus to Beam. And we will talk about what it gives us and what are the trade-offs here. And there's quite a lot of things here to discuss. So basically, whenever you put the coin into the pool and then take out a new UTXO, which is completely unlinked, you break this possibility of creating these transaction graphs that can assist in de-anonymizing users using targeted attacks. Even though it's a probabilistic attack, by using enough transactions, you can reach rather high probability if you are very persistent and you monitor large amounts of the network. So using Lelantus here breaks this ability completely, because at some point the transaction graph just disconnects and you can no longer trace it through and through. So of course this also happens in the offline transactions, because the same idea of using the LelantusMW shielded pool is used. However, there is an important difference here, and this difference is related to the term anonymity set. So basically Lelantus allowed us in current BIM implementation to have a maximum anonymity set of 64K, which means that each UTXO can be randomly selected from a window of a set of 60 up to 64K UTXOs. However, if in case of, let's say, offline payments, the user spends the coins immediately or soon after the receiving them through the pool, the attacker can assume that these coins that the user spends will be closer to the edge of the pool and not necessarily selected at random in a uniform way from the entire window. Which is why when we create max privacy transaction, it would not be possible for the wallet to spend these coins until the appropriate anonymity set has been reached. And this anonymity set is agreed upon between the sender and the receiver, because it kind of affects both of them. So the link between the sender and the receiver is something that we do not want discovered, and therefore since the receiver is responsible for spending these coins and thus can affect the anonymity set in general, the wallet will protect both the sender and the receiver so that the coins cannot be spent until the agreed anonymity set between them is reached. And this of course means that it might take some time for this window of anonymity set to move to a new position, and therefore the coins might take longer to basically to mature inside the pool until they can be spent. So this is the trade-off here. The trade-off is that we can guarantee anonymity set, but it might take longer time for these funds to become available for next transactions. Another trade-off that we have with Lelantus is that every coin that is inserted into the Lelantus pool basically stays there forever, thus increasing the blockchain size. And it's of course contrary to the Mimblewimble advantage of making the blockchain size smaller. So there is a trade-off here, which is why Lelantus transactions are limited to the 20% of the block, and also they have higher fees. And these fees are paid both by sender, which inserts the coin into the pool, and by the receiver that takes them out. And this is how we're trying to balance between the ability to use offline transactions and max privacy transactions and the blockchain size. So when should you use regular Mimblewimble transactions over offline transactions or max privacy transactions? So in most cases, you can use Mimblewimble transactions. They are fast, they are very efficient, and they preserve the small blockchain size of BIM, which is important for decentralization. However, if you know that the receiver is going to be offline and you really want to send in the funds, then you can use offline transactions if, of course, you have the vouchers to do so. Max privacy transactions should be used when you want to make sure there will be no link between you and the receiver, or you and the sender, depending on what side of the transaction you are on. Of course, coins that are received during the offline transaction are also completely unlinked, since they are using the Lelantus shielded pool. However, there is no guarantee of a minimum anonymity set, unlike max privacy transactions that definitely guarantee you the minimum anonymity set of what is specified in your wallet settings. So thank you very much for watching this video. Please feel free to ask any questions that you have in our community channels. subscribe to our YouTube channel, and have a great day.